Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the football club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
Another defeat on the road for the Blues makes it 2 defeats in a row away from home to start the season, but it's a dismal display that is as worrying as the result. We look back on the 3-0 loss at Milton Keynes and ask, what can be done to turn things around? Yes, it's very much Groundhog Day again, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
What the Blues away from home of late. Not a particularly great day out, really, was it? Watching United.
No, a soulless place and a soulless performance to match.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the actual away day as well in a little bit later on. But yeah, it just wasn't good. I mean, there was very little positive to take out of it.
I mean, the thing is, last season we were sort of still saying in October and November we haven't actually been battered by anyone, and this season, with 3 games in, we've actually been battered twice.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Gillingham game, I think, as much as the scoreline's a battering, I don't think performance-wise it was necessarily a battering. This one, we barely laid a glove on them, and that's being brutally honest, so we kind of had to accept that it was not great, to put it bluntly.
And the thing is, MK Dons will do that to teams. You know, we're not going to be the only team that they're going to do that to at home this season.
Yeah,
but we shouldn't be one of those teams. You know, we should be competing sort of top 3, I think, at least playoffs. So we shouldn't be one of those teams. We should be at least able to lay a glove on them, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just feels frustrating. I mean, I was looking at my EFL Fantasy League team, and having Big John in defence isn't helping me much at the moment, if I'm honest. So I might have to rethink that one. But yeah, it wasn't great. And that's just being honest. So there you go. Right. Before we get going, of course, we are sponsored by the Carlisle United Supporters Trust this season, and here's a little bit from them to tell you what they're all about.
Carlisle United Supporters Trust is your voice in the boardroom. Join today to help shape the future of the club. Member benefits include 10% discount in the Blue Store, ticket priority for big games, a chance to win an exclusive boardroom experience for you and a guest with food, drinks and a picture on the pitch, a chance to win entry into one of the new East Stand lounges for you and a guest, a monthly draw for junior members to win signed merchandise, discounts in the Trust online store, the chance to vote in the AGM and in-member surveys to influence the future of the Supporters Trust and Football Club. Visit our website at www.CUST.org.uk for details.
There you go. That's our sponsors, the Carlisle United Supporters Trust. Thank you very much for the help they're giving us this season. Really, really appreciate it. Just a reminder as well, if you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on Twitter at Brunton Bugle. Same on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, and if you want to email us, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Let's get into it then, Mike. MK Don, I don't even like call them Dons. Milton Keynes 3, Carlisle United 0. And it's kind of weird because like the scoreline doesn't flatter us. Does it flatter them? I mean, no, it doesn't. To be fair, it's probably about right. I think they because the thing is they didn't have to try, and that's the thing that annoyed me the most is that once they went to 2-0, they were fairly comfortable. Like they knew they didn't have to throw things forward at us, didn't they?
Yeah, I think Lewis. I don't really recall him making any saves.
And that's not a criticism of him. He didn't.
No, exactly.
He had no chance with the goals.
They just had 3 good chances and they put them all in. And we didn't really have very much in the way of chances. So yeah, it's a fair result at the end of the day, and just a very lacklustre performance.
Yeah. Team news for this one. Terrell Thomas missed out, unfortunately. By the sounds of what Simo's saying, he should be back for next week, which I think we'll come to later, but I think he's good news because we could do with him back, I think, next week.
I think one thing that massively concerned me since yesterday is how much we missed him, because we're going to miss him with international duty this season. And if that's how much we miss him, it doesn't bode very well.
Yeah, especially when you look, I think the first one's going to be Bradford away, and I don't think I'd like to have him for that game, if I'm honest. But there you go. So Thomas misses out. Sam Lavelle steps into defence on the bench. Sadie comes in, so there's no change in midfield. It was Barkley, Neil, and Fella again. Sadie comes onto the bench, and dropping off was Sam Hetherington. Luke Armstrong also returns to the bench as well after his good news last week. Problem is, the extended highlights haven't appeared on CUTV as we record this on Sunday morning. Maybe a blessing in disguise, that, because there isn't many highlights for us. So we've had to watch the basic YouTube 2-minute job, which shows pretty much 2 of our 3 shots on target anyway. So,
and that's the thing. And what I was saying before we recorded is that while we were at the game, and you think, well, if you saw the game from that away end, you don't really take in a lot of what's happening. You sort of.
It's a huge ground, isn't it? And you kind of get a bit lost in the fact that it is so cavernous. And we'll get onto that later. Actually, we'll talk about what it's like as a place to go and watch football. But yeah, I mean, in terms of MK was sort of, they looked comfortable early on, but actually I thought we sort of marshalled them fairly well up to a point for the first 15 minutes or so. They never really got in. There was a couple of little moments, but nothing where you're really panicking. We looked, I won't say lively, but we looked like we might be able to do something on the break. And then the first goal, it's just really, really simple for them, isn't it, to take the lead. It's a through ball down the right. Williams dives in to try and win the ball because he basically gets done by Nemane, who turns really well on the wing. He's away. At that point, Medish has to try and come across and block it. He's not able to get there in time. Nemane gets to the byline and cuts it back to Hendry, and he's unmarked and has a really easy task to divert the ball into the back of the net. And at that point, there was a feeling of like, here we go again, wasn't there, when that went in?
Yeah, I mean, you say Hendry's unmarked, but actually watch it back, and there's a couple of players unmarked in that penalty area. I think our defenders were just kind of ball watching and, just not picking up the men. It was the lad crossing it. He had, almost a dilemma of who to cross it to because who's open. But I don't know if it's that goal or if it was the second goal. It's it's the second goal.
Should we go straight to the second goal because it was near enough identical to the first one. A bit more of a slick passing move from MK. Tom Carroll, who had a really good game for them. Really, he looked really tight in the ball. He's able to find Lemon Hay Evans in he must have had about 10-15 yards all the way around him in a circle. It was ridiculous. At that point, for some reason, Sam Lavelle comes charging out towards him, leaving a huge gap behind him. Yeah. Lemon Hay Evans plays in a lovely slide ball for Nemane, who's got round Williams again. I'm a bit loath to criticise Williams as much in that one because I think that it's as much Lavelle sprinting out and then he cuts the ball across and there's Ghibli to slide in the area you'd probably expect Lavelle to be in, and Hayden hasn't got time to come across and get to it. And it's 2-0, and at that point you're like, they were so comfortable on the ball. Deep down, I think every one of us were thinking, we do well to get a point out of this now. We do really well to get a point out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we hit the bar when that second goal went in. Couldn't be watching any more of it. It was shocking.
Yeah, it was not great, to put it bluntly. Just really poor. I mean, in the second half, he makes the change at half time. Barkley off for Sadie, who, I think we missed. There was an early chance, I think, that John Mellish had that he put over the bar, which came from Sadie playing a free ball to him. And then there was a chance for a Dewey J, which actually came from a nice little bit of play by Sadie to get cut back from the right onto his left foot and play a cross-field ball that he hits a first-time volley. And the technique's nice, but the angle was so tight. It was always going to be straight at the keeper, and it was a pretty straightforward save. And then probably the best chance actually fell to Sadie himself, didn't it? It was a bit of play down the left. Ellis plays it back to Neil, who puts a fairly decent first-time ball in. And leaning back, Sadie has to just hit a volley, well, sort of half volley towards goal. And to be fair, I mean, it's a good hit, but I think you'd be disappointed if your keeper didn't save it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but, you know, the keeper didn't manage to get two hands in it. You know, you want a striker following in to maybe get the rebound off a shot like that. Armstrong
did follow in, and I just think he made the wrong decision. I think he thought, I'm going to try and be clever here and backheel it. And what he should have done was actually just kept running away from goal to find someone to cross the ball back in, or even try and get the keeper to come out and bring you down. You know, that would have been an option. I think he just tried to be a little bit too clever there, Luke. It was fairly scrappy for the last 10-15 minutes, and we had a lot of the ball at that point, but never really laid a glove on them. And then later on the counter, they wrapped things up, and it was pretty straightforward from Tomlinson. I think Hayden was taken out by a really good pass across to him. He gets into the box and he sort of hits it across goal, and Lewis didn't have really much chance because he's in that position, isn't he, where he has to sort of consider whether someone's going to get a touch or try and stop the ball. It was a horrible one, and flies into the bottom corner. At that point, half the away end left, and the ones that were remaining at the end made their displeasure known, didn't they? I think it's fair to say.
Well, there was quite a lot of fans. Yeah, there was quite a lot of fans clapping us off though, which
I know it's a real bugbear of yours, and I do get why some people do it. Look, at the end of the day, it's just a habit for a lot of people, and they just want to show some level of appreciation. I don't think it was we'll talk about it, but I don't think it was a lack of effort. I think almost a lack of belief and heart. Almost, it's not like they didn't, do the running. It's hard to put your finger on it, isn't it, really?
I mean, personnel-wise, I wouldn't even argue with that starting 11. I think it was a robust midfield, which you would think would sort of limit what MK Dons could do in midfield, but it just didn't at all.
No.
And that's it.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of people are going to be saying, why didn't you just throw Sadie straight in? I totally understand why he didn't do that. Why he didn't throw him. He's only trained for them a couple of days. Give him a bit of time to settle in. I'm pretty sure he will start against Tranmere. Look, we'll come on to that later. But yeah, it wasn't great. Shall we do some 6-second reviews?
Go on.
So first up, we've got Damo. Now, Damo actually came to the game with us, didn't he? He's a Celtic fan who lives down in the Midlands, and he's mates with our mate Johnny. And he was basically they play today, so as we're recording. So I think he was like, "I'll come down to the game with you guys." And yeah, here's his sort of neutral view on it. So it's interesting to hear what he's got to say.
Right, so that's me back into Birmingham, just having come back from Milton Keynes with Carlisle. Sadly, result performance wasn't good enough, especially in the first half. Seemed poor on the ball, sluggish on the ball. Just didn't really press, allowed them too much time, and generally stood off. Which you can't do at any level. Second half was better. Moved the ball a bit better. Were better on the ball in general. Got about them a little bit, but it was probably too little, too late. Saying that, still a good day out with the lads. Into the most sort of Milton Keynes pub you could go into. It was a Witherspoon's devoid of any sort of character, pretty much like the town. But no, it was a good day out. Hopefully, as the season progresses, things will improve, and hopefully might get to see a Carlisle win on the road this season. And thanks to the lads for the day out. It was really good. All right, lads, take out.
Yeah, pretty fair assessment, I think, from Damo there. I think he pretty much nailed it, didn't we? We stood off them. We let them play a bit too much, and I'm loath to use the phrase because it sort of makes my teeth grind a little bit, but earn the right to play. So many managers say that. Well, we did not earn any right to play that first half. We just didn't.
And as well, I think, and I think their wingers did a very good job of kind of pegging off wing backs back. Our wing backs really struggled to get forward.
You say wingers, but they played with wing backs as well. Nemani was more of a wing back. I think it was a bit more of if you look at their formation, it was more of a 3-4-2-1. Obviously we play 3-5-2, so it's slightly different. But yeah, they very much play with wingers. Sorry, wing backs, but I think they are sort of wingers converted to wing backs, or at least Nemanja is definitely. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be a central midfielder originally, I think. So, so yeah, it's you're right. They pinned us back so much, and we just never really got into the game that first half. And yeah, his comments on Milton Keynes, the town itself, again, we will come to that later. That's the bit we're going to finish with. What a depressing place it is, but there you go. Fair assessment. Greg Bullman also wanted to share his views on the game as well. So Greg has sent me in a 6-second review. In fact, it's in two parts. He left a little bit at the end and an extra, so I'm going to drop that in as well. So here's part one.
This isn't a 60-second review. It's just my thoughts. It's probably easier than writing loads of bollocks. I thought first half we were absolutely woeful. Their right winger, the build-up play between, I think it's Gilby in the midfield and him, they had Williams on toast. He got absolutely overrun. And it just shows you need wingers in this league. I don't care what Paul Simpson says. His tactics are tactically wrong, in my opinion. He's got it all wrong, and he's setting the team up completely wrong because he hasn't got a plan B, because he's sticking with this tried and tested formation that isn't working. I think Neil and Vella have been flogged to death now. They look shattered now because he hasn't signed any midfielders. That's a really big concern. Sadly, when he came on, looked good. Armstrong, when he came on, looked good. I think Charlie White probably needs dropped, if I'm brutally honest. And what else would I say? It's just a real worry because they look levels ahead of us. We're nowhere near going for promotion. And if promotion is the aim, then this has been a failed transfer window because we're going to be so far adrift. I can't see it happening. Really, really concerned. And then Georgia Kelly going off injured again. I mean, that needs written off as a bad signing, a high risk that has failed. I think that's his fourth injury or potential injury.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with a lot of what Greg said there, to be honest. It's, I mean, like I said, my point is that they didn't really play with wingers. What they did, they played with wing backs who really got forward and had the ability to get forward because the midfield controlled the game so much for them. That allowed them to. Our wing backs couldn't for that reason, basically. Interesting comment on Wyke, which maybe we'll come on to when we talk about the attack. And obviously the Kelly bit as well. Just thoughts on it generally, like just a miserable performance all around, really, wasn't it? And it's, I mean, we got exactly what we deserved from the game. Nothing, not even a consolation goal.
Exactly.
It's not much more to say than that, is there really? I mean, the thing that stands out, I know you said about them some clapping off the end, but there was quite a lot of booing at the end, and you kind of get the impression when you look online, even some people who are very pro Simpson, and we're generally pro Simpson. We want him to do well. Of course, we want him to do well, but you can see patience is really wearing thin with a lot of people now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it feels again like next Saturday is kind of must win for him to keep his job.
We can't keep going on like that. You
exactly.
Can't keep going like that as a football club. For me, it's not even just next Saturday. It's like he needs to go on a 3 or 4 game unbeaten run. Really, that's what we need. Not like a win next Saturday, a draw against Bradford, and a win against Fleetwood. That's what he really needs. Being realistic, we can't have a really slow start. I know we've been really unlucky with injuries, undoubtedly, but yeah.
But it's a squad game, and the season that we came up, I remember we played Orient at home relatively early on, I think, in the season, and we had a few injuries, and we gave them a really good game, and we only lost because of Mr. Thomas Parsons. And obviously, Orient were a very good side that year, and we had a load of injuries, but we managed to compete, and we're not able to compete this year.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, and thinking back to then, did we have the injuries all in one position though? Because that's where the problem lies. It's all midfielders are out, and as Greg rightly said there, we're flogging Vella and Neil to death. And they're players who are high energy players who are all about chasing after, pressing and to be fair, the pair of them look shattered. I mean, we've got that trophy game coming up, What the hell are we going to do with that? I know we don't talk about it, but for me, play a couple of the youth team blazing for that game.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it'd be mad to even think of using the pair of them. It's it kind of feel. I'm not saying that maybe the fan base is turning slightly. I don't know, but stats wise, just a quick stat for you here. Last time we won 2 games in a row was March 2023. It was actually a run of 4 wins in a row at that point, and actually it was in total 6 unbeaten. So it was 4 wins followed by 2 draws, which were against
one of them. That Swindon game.
Yeah, that was the final one of the 4 basically, and then it was followed by a draw against Stevenage, and I think a draw against Bradford. I think it was 60 league games ago that we won 2 in a row. Oh, that's worrying.
It's shocking.
I mean,
and the thing is, as well, is like yesterday, you couldn't even put it down to the sort of players lacking confidence because of last season, because it's largely a completely new team to last season.
Yeah, it is, and I think we're missing. Look, we are missing big players because of injury, and we're missing a lot of players in midfield, and that is not going to help things, but. You almost wonder, just get someone in on loan, get another player in on loan. We've got plenty. How many loanees have we got in now? Is it 1 or 2? I can't remember now. 2, isn't it? Both from Bournemouth.
I think just 2, yeah.
Get someone else in. We just need a midfielder in just to take a bit of... Even someone on the bench is just going to come on and it just feels like... It's almost getting to the point where I'm saying, just get John into midfield for a bit. I know you're going to lose him in the defensive position then, but actually... What you're going to benefit from is his energy in there. Like that is actually that's the thing that puzzled me yesterday. I wonder if someone just doesn't want to be seen as the person who only ever does that in a game. But actually, it was the perfect game to throw John in midfield because we needed someone in there to disrupt things and actually cause problems. And you had someone like Sadio who could play on the on the wing as well. You could change it up.
I have to say, I was impressed with Sadie. I think one big litmus test for me with loanees is how much do they want the ball. That's a huge litmus test, and he always wanted the ball. He wanted to get on the ball and make things happen, which is really positive.
No, I could give him credit there, to be fair. A quick bit on the opposition before we start talking about United then. Ignore the poor start they've had in the league, because they are going to be right up there at the end of the season. I know a lot of people say, people saying, they're a good team, but they lost the first 3. It's like, they just had a bit of a duff start. They're actually a very good team. They move the ball really well. Every player in their team looks comfortable on the ball, don't they? That's the thing that really stands out for you. Played really nice football. Everyone seemed to know what their role was. Doesn't excuse us for not laying a glove on them, though. Got to say that. It really doesn't. But
we're in the same league for a reason.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they did have a £250,000 midfielder sat on the bench at the start, which is pretty telling, isn't it? In terms of who would you say was their top performer? We were doing this every game this season, aren't we? I mean, Nemanja would be the obvious one, but then again, he actually had about 2 or 3 moments where he got in. That's the thing. And actually, once Ellis came on, Ellis did a pretty good job of marshalling him. So Tom Carroll got the official man of the match at their ground. Who would you give it to?
I think the lad on the right probably. Because it's one thing getting to the line, but we've seen it so many times with wingers at this level. Sometimes wingers at this level can get to the line and they can't put the cross in, or they can put a good cross in but they can't get to the line. And ultimately, that was the difference between the 2 teams.
Should say, whoscored.com gave man of the match for Milton Keynes Dons to Tomlinson. Quite comfortably, actually, 8.5. Nemanja did come next with 8, so... Your 2 wing backs are the ones who've caused problems. I think Gilby had a very good game for them. Is like, well, actually, I like the look of him. But
certainly no one defensive would be in with a shout because we just didn't test them. We didn't make their defenders do anything. No,
you know what? He got 2 assists. You can't really have it, can you? Nemanja, he's their top performer. We actually look at the whoscored.com ratings. I mean. Their average rating was 7.14. Ours is 6.22, and that is a big gap. Normally, the gap is not that big between 2 teams, and that's quite a big gap. And our top performer was Aaron Hayden with 7, and no one else got a 7. Poor Harry Lewis got 5.9. He didn't do much wrong. Bless him.
And that's the thing. We were quite critical of Lewis after the Gillingham game, and he could have done better with some of those goals. But for this game, there really wasn't much he could do with those goals.
No, it was frustrating, and we're not even going to talk about him beyond that. He didn't do anything really wrong. He actually came and claimed the ball quite well at times, and his kicking was fine. So there you go. The whole team just looked a bit lackluster. They just looked like they weren't quite sure about what they wanted to do at times, and
I think as Greg touched on as well, the lack of plan B is really hurting us.
And yeah, it's baffling that Simo didn't even use his go-to plan B of pushing Milic into midfield. That really, I mean, and the thing is, you've got Aduj can play out wide. Even Armstrong can play out wide. Put him one wing, put Sadie on the other wing, and stick. You know, and then later on you had Butterworth had to come on, obviously, which we'll talk about that. But I think the thing that really frustrates me, and I don't want to get all, back in my day, always, the way football should be played and stuff, but we didn't pick up a single booking. And that's just mean we didn't even get close to them,
or a single corner.
Yeah, no corner as well. You're right, and just try and lay a glove on them a little bit, get a tackle in, and it just felt like sometimes you just needed like a snidey little trip on a player or something, or just someone to go in and smash someone a little bit, and yeah, you get a booking, but it lifts the team, makes them. But it didn't really feel like there was much in there. To be honest, it was just really frustrating. Barkley in midfield. It's not his fault. He didn't actually play that badly in this one. It took a while for him to get on the ball, but I don't think that was necessarily his fault because the whole midfield wasn't off it. But when you have three midfielders who want to sit so deep, and that's their natural game is to really sit deep or try and press in that way and not really push forward as much. And Vela's trying to do that, I know, but naturally it's not really his game. You need to change it up. You just have to. Yeah. And I think that if you want to call it the experiment, I think it's probably a bit harsh to call it that, but it just isn't working. It's time to change it up, and I'm pretty sure Sadie will start next week, won't he?
Yeah, I hope so, because he just brought a little bit of life to the midfield, to be honest. Yeah.
I think if Thomas isn't fit as well, I'd be tempted to drop Barkley back into the defence and push Hayden into the middle, as the middle of the three centre-backs.
Yeah.
I think that would work.
That's the thing. It seems a bit, a bit too much of last season, getting on Lavelle's case, but he did not have a good game yesterday. No, he really didn't.
He struggled to pick up the movement of some of their players, and like you say, he just stepped out of. I mean, it was slightly better than last season's Lavelle, to be honest, in the way he played, but yeah, he generally caught out a bit on Gilby's goal. He's just not good enough on the ball, even that's. If we're going to try and play a little bit more football season, which we have tried to before this weekend's game, I don't think he fits in there. Almost, it's tough, but he's going to get game time because as you mentioned, Thomas has got international duty. Potentially going to miss the Bradford game. I mean, I do wonder if it might be one where he just says like to St. Lucia, "Look, I need to be playing at the start of the season. We're struggling a little bit here. I can't go off international duty." Sometimes you get players do that, don't they?
I don't know. I wouldn't mind swanning off to St. Lucia right now.
No, the way, Bradford or St. Lucia. Which one are you going for? I wonder. But yeah, I'm basically clutching at straws there, hoping that he does do that. But I would not blame him if he did. To be fair, let me make that clear. Yeah, defensively just wasn't great. And look, we big up Big John a lot on here. We really do, but probably wasn't his greatest game either, to be honest.
No, but I felt like John though yesterday, like Williams on the left was getting caught out a bit, and Lavelle, the other side of Mellish, was getting caught out, and Mellish was kind of in between those two. Getting dragged all over the shop.
And as a result, we didn't actually see much of him going forward either because we weren't getting any sort of control in midfield. He couldn't really go and affect things up the pitch. So it was tough. And yeah, like that first goal is a prime example where, Williams gets done and suddenly John's like, oh, he's dived in there. And now, instead of actually running with him, he's tried to dive in and win the ball. And now I'm caught out and I'm to come across, and that leaves the gap a little bit, which... that's why I'm not going to be as critical on like Lavelle for the first goal, because I think that was as much the fact that Mellish got dragged out there due to Williams, diving in to try and win the ball. I mean, the wing backs, we've already touched on this, but like that was one of the big differences between the two teams, wasn't it? The fact that their wing backs were able to get forward with free abandon and cause problems down both wings. Well, to be fair, I say down both. It was mostly down our left. To be fair, because Tomlinson got that 8.5, but I can't remember Davies getting done that much, to be honest, down his side.
No,
but that's where the problem was, that Davies has been so good going forward at the start of the season, and I actually can't remember him getting forward or even putting a cross in this game. I'm sure he did, but can you recall it?
No, I can't.
The wing backs were a bit disappointing in this game, weren't they?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's ultimately, in a team that's playing well, your wing backs can get forward and do things, and when the rest of the team isn't playing well, they can't. So it wasn't down on them individually per se. It's just a symptom of the whole team not being very good.
It was a lack of getting control of that midfield. I think that was the big problem, and as a result, the pair of them, they kind of, it was tough for them because they were sort of, they had to sit deeper and deeper because they knew we can't go forward because we're not winning the ball in midfield. If I do, we're gonna leave the defence exposed.
Exactly.
So that's the difference, because MK had control of the midfield. Their wing backs could bomb forward as much as they want. They didn't actually have to get back and defend that much, to be fair. I mean, the midfield's the obvious one to get onto there, isn't it? I mean, it's so one-dimensional at times. It's painful. There's far too much of getting rid of the ball early, and it's driving me a little bit mad. And I don't know. Look, we're not really ones to pick on individual players here much, but Harrison Neal's are really, really bad for that. He really is, like, just hooking the ball aimlessly, just not trying to get the ball. That's the big difference you saw with someone like Tom Carroll and even Lemon Hay Evans, just constantly trying to get the ball down and play it a little bit. And there's times where Neal had that opportunity, but I do wonder if it's almost this fact that he's so knackered from playing so much that he's getting even more into the habit of just hooking it forward aimlessly at times. Yeah,
I mean, I think we saw last season the midfield looks a lot better when McGeach's in it, because he just he sets the tempo. He can take a couple of touches, and he's one of them midfielders that just always seems to have time on the ball. And sometimes, Neal was hooking it, but he was being closed down at the same time, and McGeach just always seems to just have that bit of time and space, which is an ability in itself to, to be able to look like you've got so much time on the ball all the time.
It can be a luxury, but I think actually yesterday would have been quite a good game for McGeach, because he might have got a hold of the ball a bit more and just calm things down a little bit. And look, but
like I say, I didn't disagree with the team. I thought that's robust. And we can limit what they can do in midfield, but it just didn't happen.
No, and look, I know we keep saying it, and it's a bit of a broken record, but my God, do we miss Callum Guy in that midfield? I really cannot wait for him to be back fit. Whatever happens going forward, we just need to get him on the pitch and get him playing. It was probably Vella's poorest game as well of the season, and because actually he's looked quite good in most of the games, and he just couldn't get into the game at all. And as you mentioned, I think actually, Sadly looked quite good when he came on. He looked tidy on the ball. He disappeared for long periods, but I don't think that's so much his fault. We just weren't in the game as much. So but when he was in the game, he looked good, and he looked like he used the ball really well. So attack wise, I don't think either of them had particularly good service. The midfield was so deep. There was such a huge gap there. It was always a challenge for them. But Wyke's struggling to make a bit of an impact since he's arrived, hasn't he? And obviously Greg picked it out there in his bit, and he said that maybe he needs to be dropped. Interesting view, that one. I still persist with him for now, but I wonder if the captaincy has had the same effect on him as it did on Callum Guy. I remember a couple of years ago when he got it, and his game just dropped that little bit. I wonder if you take that off. You can't do it now. That's the annoying thing, because you started the season and it's going to look ridiculous. But
maybe
I'm just not. At the moment, I'm just. You need to get good service to him, and we're not getting good service to him. That's the first thing you've got to say first.
That's the thing. I mean, Charlie Wyke, while he is good at the link-up side of things, he's a striker where you give him any of those chances that MK Dons had yesterday, and Charlie Wyke will typically score them all. That's his job, and that's what he does. But if
he's got a hat trick if he was playing for them, he would have got a hat trick for them.
Exactly. And if we're not going to give him chances, then he's going to struggle, as would any striker. But I mean, for me, I think maybe next Saturday, if he's not doing it at 60 minutes, I'd bring Armstrong on for him. And if Armstrong impresses in those 30 minutes and makes a case to start, then I think he should. I think, armband or not, no player should be guaranteed a starting role in the team.
Yeah, yeah. But like I said, I think we're both sort of in agreement, aren't we, that the service needs to be better. Before we really have a go at the attackers, the service needs to be a lot better. In terms of subs, we've mentioned already, Sadie did well. Armstrong looked lively, actually, when he came on, to be fair, did okay, bit of running, but, I mean, his game was disrupted by the fact that, you know, Georgie Kelly comes on and then he's off again. You know, and he's suddenly like he's having to do a different role again, and it's just like he just can't have a settled run in the team, and yeah, it's not ideal in that sense for him.
No,
I thought Jack Ellis did quite well actually when he came on. I thought he dealt well with Nemane, and you know, even again going forward on the left, he looked okay. You know, he had a few little moments, so there's something there. Georgie Kelly, I mean, yeah, Greg mentioned it. It's just like, before we start talk about this, I've got to say, people say, oh, you know, he was always injury prone. Actually, if you look back when he was at Rotherham, for the whole of that whole season, you know, he was there for like a half a season, a whole season, and a half season. That whole season, he was barely injured for that. He was actually on the bench for most games in that season. So this idea that he's always been injury prone isn't quite right, to be fair. I've got to really have to correct that, because it's another one of these misconceptions that our fans get, and I'll talk about another one of them in a minute. But he wasn't. Yes, he probably had an injury issue before he came to us. The worry is that, and it seems to be the case with a lot of players who come to us, they just pick up injury issues, and it's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, definitely. But I think questions maybe need to be raised about the medical that he had. You know, that we seem to think that. I mean, I remember at the time, it was said when we signed him that, oh yeah, it'll be out for a couple of weeks. But then that couple of weeks turned into like a month, didn't it? Or maybe even a bit longer. So yeah, I think that whatever happened in the medical, I don't think was very thorough with that. But yeah, it's a 3.5 year deal, and you know, I like him. I followed him a bit at Bohemians, but yeah, it's just disappointing that it's another injury, because I felt before that he put himself about a bit
he did,
as well.
He did,
certainly more than White was doing, but
yeah,
it's just disappointing.
We want him to do well, and we're not going to get on his back too much, because like, I'm sure he is absolutely gutted as well, because like Simo says, he tries to live his life within the best possible way. You know, he looks after himself and everything, but sometimes if you keep picking up injuries, it just becomes an ongoing issue, doesn't it? So yeah, I really hope he can turn it around, and maybe it's one where we just have to be patient on his comeback and we don't rush it. Maybe we need to get we probably have to get a striker in on loan to cover that position, really, just to make sure he's got time to actually fully recover from whatever the issue is. You know, it's the same thing we have with Taylor Charles, isn't it? With Simon said, look, we're going to take our time to make sure it's done properly this time. Yeah, rather than rushing it back. So yeah, just generally though, you know, we can't keep up this run of win followed by defeat. It needs to be an unbeaten run that comes up next. Yeah. That's the key thing. It's not. I'm not talking about 2 wins in a row and then a defeat. It has to be an unbeaten run. You have to have a bit of, because I think actually, if you can get that unbeaten run going, I think there would be real belief going through the team, and suddenly you'd see a different side. You know, that's why it needs to be a good run, because if it keeps going, even if it's like a couple of wins, then a defeat, and then a win, and a defeat, and then a couple of wins, you're just like, we can't get settled in. That's where you end up in a rut. That's the problem. So, yeah, there's definitely a sort of growing feeling regarding Simmer and the fan base. I think it's quite sad to see. And I think actually, I think you can have the view that you want Simmer out. That's fine. No issue with that. It's football. Everyone's got opinions. You know, you can think, you know, we need to change things, whatever. That's great. But the disrespect some people have shown him is a little bit disgusting, actually, at times. There's a hand. It's only a handful of fans, but there's a handful of them. And the way they describe him, they talk about him, is just like, it's not needed. It just isn't needed. And like, a man who's done as much as he has for us deserves a lot more respect than he's actually getting from some of those people.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. It's understandable people are frustrated, and maybe, you know, the time may or may not have come for him to move on, but some of the comments on him as a manager in general, like as if he's never actually achieved anything for us in some ways. It's like, it's daft.
Yeah. Right. There's one particular person on YouTube. He had a little go at you, didn't he? He needs to wind his neck. And although I noticed he's deleted his posts, including a few other posts where he actually had to go at a lot of the other content creators. People like, the Blast Stitch guys and BBC Social and the other podcasts and stuff like that. They had to go at them for no reason. And it was actually quite pathetic, really. I mean, I can't remember. I'm not going to name the guy, but is he the guy who talked about oil-rich Wrexham? I think he is.
Oh, it might be, yeah.
Which probably sums him up pretty well. But there you go. But yeah, I mean, it's another one of these misconceptions I want to pull up on, because I mentioned obviously the last time we had an unbeaten run and and 2 games in a row where we won. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, it all went wrong from January last year," but it didn't actually.
No.
If you go back and look at it, it was actually the start of April, pretty much.
Yeah.
Very end of March, start of April is where it really went wrong, and we had that run where it wasn't even so much losses; it was draws that was the problem. We just couldn't quite get over the line in games. That was the problem. So I don't want it. I'm not having it rewritten by some people saying like, "Oh, it's been terrible since January," whatever it is. It hasn't, because we had a 6-game unbeaten run in that thing. We beat Crawley 5-2, and it was a game where we probably could have beaten Crawley by 8 or 9 if we'd been a little bit more, clinical with our shooting that day. We beat Swindon 2-1 in a game where we played really well. Games like that, and it's fine to say like, look, because I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, we're 3 games in," and I totally get that other people say, "Oh, but what about last season?" 100% right. You're right to bring that up, because that was awful last season, even with the mitigating circumstances of the lack of budget at the start of the season, having to play catch up and all that kind of thing. But then the people who then try and drag the whole of the second half of the previous season in, no, I don't have that. I'm sorry, but the last month or so, yes, it wasn't as good, but that that happens in seasons when you're going for promotion. You'll find sometimes the steam runs out a little bit, and we got the second win to get over the line. But yeah, I think people need to be sort of careful in revising history a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's about 60 games is kind of where it's not been great.
Yeah, which takes you back to that unbeaten run, basically, in March.
Because I think it's 10 wins in 60, I think.
Yeah, something like that, which is not good. Yeah. There's no hiding the fact that is not good. It's just simply not good enough. And look, I know Simo will know that. I mean, what do you think he can actually do to change things, though, at the moment? Look, let's presume we're going to get another midfielder in, because Simo seems confident we're going to get another permanent midfielder in, possibly this week. He's a bit more attack-minded. If we can get him in early in the week, and then you've basically got him and Sadie to come into the midfield with, let's say Vela's the one who stays in there, because, like I said, Neil, I think, has not really hit the heights at the start of this season. Okay. Well, what can he do in there? I mean, do you stick with the 3-5-2 and just hope that midfield improvement helps?
I just feel so much of the recruitment has been geared towards the 3-5-2, and
it's hard to switch from it, isn't it?
Completely changing formation, it would be a bit. You can maybe have a 4 at the back, and have sort of Hayden and Thomas as centre backs, and put Mellish in midfield.
Yeah. when Cameron Harper's back, you could play him as one of the wingers possibly, maybe, and or even Williams as one of the wingers, and alternate between those two. I think Davis has got the ability to be a winger, actually, to be fair, probably more than the other two, actually, because he's more like a dribbler, isn't he? And you play Ellis as just a solid right back, I suppose. That is an option, but
Charters, when fit, looks decent on the wing.
Yeah, but then again, it's more of square pegs in round holes, isn't it? There is one thing I'd say about this. Like, people talk as if like every club has this option to change between 2 or 3 formations. They don't actually. If you go and look at, most teams will stick to the same formation, because you haven't got the time to work with a team on 2 specific formations. We were lucky in the sense that we had this ability a couple of years ago where we could switch that 4-3-3, but a lot of that was, as we've said before, was caused by the chaos of John going into midfield, which it just was, and Gibson's ability to play as a winger, and Patrick being a winger naturally, it was easy enough. But not many clubs do that, actually. Most of them generally stick to one formation, really. Maybe they tweak it slightly around the edges, but you don't actually get it that often, do you?
No. I mean, I think one thing that sort of could be done is ultimately the way that the midfield has been at the start of the season is we've had sort of Barkley kind of sitting in front of the defence a bit, and then Vela and Neil a little bit ahead of him. And maybe just sort of play like two slightly sitting midfielders, and then play like Sardi as like a 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the obvious thing. If we don't get another midfielder in by the end of the week, then, and even if we do, actually, if it's towards the end of the week, that's what I'd do. And yeah, Barkley sadly would be the one who'd be dropped probably.
Yeah,
that seems the obvious thing to do, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. It just. I mean, obviously, maybe you can change things in attack a little bit. I know we say they haven't had a great service, but maybe even just freshen it up there to someone who, like Armstrong, who does a lot of good pressing when he's playing up there, would be an option. I mean, it sounds like potentially there's going to be a play going out at some point in the next week, which, based on all the things Simo said, I would be surprised if it wasn't Dan Butterworth, although I wonder if Kelly's injury might have put pay to that now almost, if we can't get a striker in. Although I'd imagine either way, he's not convinced by him. And I mean, I've seen some people on the message boards, talk about, like, all he needs is a run of games, Butterworth, and I just don't see it. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't see the football brain in there. I just don't.
That's the thing. I think in terms of technical ability, he is a very good player, but technical ability isn't what makes you a footballer. There's so much more to being a footballer than that, and I think, the mental side of his game. I think even the physical side of his game. I think he's not slow, but I think if you had an extra yard of pace, he would maybe be terrifying.
He does a lot of ball watching. But he's like, I've heard people. There's some people on there comparing him to Gibson, and I don't have that, because when Gibson played in that midfield three, he actually was very good at winning the ball back. He had that ability to stick his foot in and nick the ball, and then he was away on the counter. I'd never seen that from Butterworth. I just haven't. For Butterworth, you've got to get the ball onto his feet and get him running at someone, and even then, you can't guarantee what the end product's going to be. I don't see it. So it seems likely he's going to leave, and look, I'm not going to be that gutted if he does. He hasn't
I mean, I feel like with the right manager somewhere else, he may go on to actually be a very good player for someone, but I don't think it's working with us. I
feel like he has to drop to National League level to try and find his feet, because I don't think he's good enough for League Two based on what I've seen so far. I'm just not seeing it. So the feeling is we need to probably going to have to get a striker, and if Kelly's going to be out again, because we just need another option there. Again, if we just get someone, ideally someone who can play out wide as well. It's what we really need. Ironic, we'll talk about him in a minute. Someone like a Terry Bladdy with a bit more ability is what you need, isn't it? And another midfielder. And if that's the case, that someone else then is going to end up leaving, but maybe to go out on loan when the window's closed to the National League or something, then so be it. So we all sound very downbeat today, don't we? There's not really much to talk about, and not helped by the fact. Let's talk about it now then. The away day. Got to say, I think it's the first time you've been. What did you make of the facilities at Stadium NK? Because I've been a couple of times now. I mean, it is a luxury, isn't it? I mean, I went to watch the Magic Weekend, the rugby league at Ellen Road at Leeds United last weekend, and with Johnny, and Johnny was saying, and he's right, and like even I'm not as tall as Johnny's a few inches taller than me. Leg room there's appalling. Like, I could not sit there every week and watch a game. You were really cramped in. Here you had so much room, didn't you?
Yeah, and as far as away game toilets go, they weren't that bad. Bar facilities and that, it was all sizable concourse. But it's just soulless, isn't it?
Oh, you know what? I know they're probably getting paid decent money, whatever, and the facilities are nice for them as players. I'd find it soul destroying playing there every week. What was the crowd? 6,300 and whatever it was. 99?
And I think that's a lie, to be honest. Cause
it must be including season tickets weren't there, because we sold 700 odd, which is a hell of an effort from our fans to go down that far, especially with our away form. And the ground holds 30,000. It's barely a fifth full.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it wasn't even so. You can have grounds where there's not many people there, but the atmosphere is still good and they're still making noise. Nothing. Absolutely nothing, was there? It was until like late on when there was a little bit of chanting from behind the opposite goal. It was like there was just no noise coming from the ground. It felt like going to watch a pre-season friendly, almost like a training match, wasn't it? At times.
Yeah, and obviously they closed off all of the upper tiers to like condense people into the lower tiers. But even then, I mean, it's just so sparse, the crowd.
I never get with that why they don't have some sort of like pull down banners they can almost put to make, because it would look a bit better. It probably keep some of the sound in a bit better, because when you've got this empty seat, it just reverberates around, doesn't it? And yeah, it wasn't great. And I don't get why they put us in the corner either as well. Just put it straight behind the goal. In the corner, you get a really weird view. I'm just as you said, you couldn't really tell what was going on at times in the game. It was quite hard, and yeah, I'm not even going to try. I'm not using this as an excuse at all for the players. I'm not. But you look at how we got up for a game against Barrow with a big crowd in and a real atmosphere in the ground. Are they finding it hard to get themselves up for games where there's not really anyone there and the atmosphere is dead? Which is worrying, because they need to be able to do that, because you're going to get that in some grounds. I do wonder that.
I don't know. I mean, because you sometimes struggle to make an atmosphere at Gillingham as well, don't you?
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. Behind the goal, they get a bit of atmosphere going as well. But, that's just it's. I don't know. I'm not making excuses. I'm not in any slight way. And yeah, Milton Keynes, the town itself, what a depressing place. You come out of that train station, and it's a huge, like, open sort of plaza of concrete almost, isn't it? There's nothing there for ages. You have to walk by 2 roundabouts to get up to the Wetherspoons pub that was nearby, which was the most Wetherspoons pubs, they put them in old buildings, don't they, and stuff like that, and they're quite nice. Well, obviously there isn't any old buildings in Milton Keynes, and it's just basically in part of like a business estate almost, isn't it? And it was just devoid of character, nothing.
The whole town is just like one of those new out of town retail parks. Yeah. Like, that's the entire town.
Yeah. And like I said, the facilities at the ground, fantastic, but the whole town itself, oh, God, it's an away day. I don't think it's one I'd probably do again, to be honest. Like I said yesterday, pretty much the only reason I went is because it was one of your Saturdays off, so there's no other real reason. So, yeah, not one we'll be rushing back to anytime soon, to say the least. Right, let's run through the League 2 results and then do the X-Files on the weekend, because there's actually a few to cover this weekend. Crewe v Swindon was a 0-0 draw. That was live on Sky. What a thriller that must have been. We actually stopped in Crewe, didn't we, on the way down? We changed trains there because it was cheaper. Yeah. There was a few police around. I wouldn't have expected any trouble between Crewe and Swindon, especially with the early kick-off. But there you go. Tranmere Rovers, 1-0 win over Walsall, but we will talk about that one in a second. Our friends down the coast, 4-0 win over Port Vale. You know, all the goals came late on, I think, like the last half an hour, didn't they? But... I mean, fair play to the Barrow Twitter admin. Did you see their tweet?
Yeah.
They put a tweet off, put a full time saying 4-0 victory. Not unlucky, lads. Not everyone can win it at the weekend, which, for those who don't know, relates to the disallowed goal unlucky lads tweet last weekend that our the Carlisle United Twitter admin put up, which, when you've won your first game of the season only 1-0 and you've been in such terrible form, look, I'm loath to be part of the fun police here and everything like that, but you know what? You've got to be careful with starting doing stuff like that, because you look really bloody stupid when a week later you're getting come to be 3-0 and they're winning 4-0.
Hindsight's 2020, though, isn't it?
It is hindsight 2020, but there's a case of like, maybe it's just maybe I'm just boring off fashion, but I'm not a massive fan of football clubs being banter merchants on Twitter and stuff like that. I just think it looks stupid at times, and you are setting yourself up for a big fall, you know. And when you start crowing about how well you've done with your stats on it, that's great, but yeah, a week later you put in a thing saying, "Oh, thanks to all the fans for coming down for the game. You know, really appreciate support. Not what we wanted." And then pretty much like half the replies are saying, "Where's the corner flag pick?" You know, because they basically wanted the manager sacked. It's like, yeah, it's not great. That's another thing we should mention, because I've just seen a WhatsApp message from Johnny there as we're talking there. Is as we were leaving, they've got the Lime scooters there. So if anyone sees like e-scooters, you get in a lot of towns where you can hire them. And there was one of those as we were walking down from Wetherspoons back to the pub. Back to the station. And Johnny was insistent on trying to use it to get back to the station, even though it was like only like a 5-minute walk. And he took so long to do it, we very nearly missed our train because he couldn't get it to work. And I kept ringing him saying, come on, you idiots, we've got to go here. But he was very insistent on trying to use it. In the end, he couldn't get it to work.
I think he was slightly over the limit as well, so it's probably for the best that he didn't use it.
Probably for the best, yes. Let's just put it that way, shall we? But there you go. So yeah, rambled a bit on it there, but Barrow 4-0, fair play to them. Good result for them, and yeah, kind of goes to show maybe they just had an off day against us, really, doesn't it? So yeah. Bradford City, they won 3-1 against Bromley again, another one we'll talk about in the X-Files. Cheltenham lost 1-0 at home against Wimbledon. They're having a tough start to the season. Chesterfield got a 1-1 draw against Salford. Colchester United lost 1-0 at home against Harrogate. Harrogate having a better start to the season, I think, than we expected. And they're just a hard team to predict, aren't they? Every time you think they might struggle. It's like Crawley a couple of years ago. I kept predicting them to finish bottom. And they never did. Just ridiculous, but there you go. Doncaster Rovers got a 1-0 win over Morecambe. Morecambe have had a really tough start to the season, which we kind of expected, didn't we? It might take them a little bit of time to find their feet if they're going to get away from trouble. Fleetwood 0-0 draw against Gillingham. We lost 3-0 against MK Dons. And Newport, they got a 3-1 win over Accrington. And if you go back to Thursday night, Notts County in the live game beat Grimsby Town 4-1. But did you see two of the goals in this game, Mike?
No.
One of them, a cross comes in, and the Notts County striker practically catches the ball in his chest with his arms. No flag, no whistle, scores a goal. And then I think the first goal, actually, even before that, was a mile offside as well, like way offside. But Grimsby didn't look great in this game, to be fair. They looked pretty poor, to say the least. Right, on to the X-Files. We sort of did a little bit of a precursor to this and mentioned it a little bit already, but starting at the highest level we can first, Tom Lawrence, he scored for Rangers as they thrashed Ross County 6-0 at the weekend. George Tanner, don't get him very often on this, but he scored an absolutely stunning goal for Bristol City, didn't he? Brilliant volley in their 1-1 draw with Coventry City. You going to take credit for this one, next one, Mike?
Hang on, go on.
Liam McCarran.
Yeah.
He scored for Northampton Town in their 2-2 draw against Barnsley. Go on, explain why you're taking credit.
Well, I coached him when he was about 7 years old and taught him everything that he knows about football, and he went on to play in the Premier League. So,
yeah, take credit for that. Well done. Back to that Tranmere Walsall game. It was a 1-0 win for Tranmere, and the goal scorer of that game, Amari Patrick. And who are we playing next weekend?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a crushing inevitability that we're going to get beat by them? Patrick's going to score the goal, and it's going to cost Simpson his job. That would be deeply, deeply upsetting if that happened, but hopefully not. Let's be confident. We're going to beat them. He's going to have a stinker, right? Let's believe. On to the Bradford against Bromley game. Andy Cook scored for Bradford in that one. They won 3-1, and Byron Webster got the goal for Bromley. Mika Obiera, we don't hear his name very often, do we? He scored for Wealdstone in their 1-1 draw at Hartlepool United. North of the border, Ethan Walker scored for Ayr United in their 2-0 win over Reef Rovers. Stefan Skugel scored for Alloa Athletic in their 1-0 win at Annan Athletic. And finally, this sort of ties into transfers, a couple of transfers covers, but this Terry Blade joined Partick Thistle in the Scottish Championship on a season-long loan from Fulham. Literally a couple of days, I think on Friday, wasn't it? And scored on his debut in a 2-1 defeat against Falkirk. So there you go. Maybe we should have got Big Tezza back.
Well, I mean, it's one of them. I'd imagine, I'm assuming here that Simo will still be here coming down the season, but I think that Simo will be keeping tabs on him, because I think he liked him. Yeah.
He liked his attitude, especially. He said he was a really, really positive player around the club as well. So there you go. And finally, just the transfer to confirm, Oliver Norwood, he's been on trial at Stockport County, and he's now signed a 3-year deal with them.
At 33.
I know at 33, but I think you said this. He's not the kind of player who needs to run around that much. He's the kind of player who can sit there and spread. He's like an even better quality Dylan McGeer, isn't he? In that sense.
Well, I was going to say Andrea Pirlo, but yeah.
Yeah. Less or better quality Andrea Pirlo, I've heard is. Yeah, there you go. Cool. Right, that's it, Mike. Pretty much dead on an hour. We'll get there at the end. We will. We've got to believe. We've got to believe. Okay. Thanks once again to our sponsor, the Carlisle United Sports Trust. There'll be a Tranmere Rovers preview and review coming up in the next week or so, but that's pretty much it, isn't it, Mike? So, thanks very much for joining me.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues. Let's believe. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
Carlisle United. Carlisle